Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria QK.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mother Knows Death. Let's get started with the story of the day.
This first story is really disturbing. So a 26-year-old was taking what was believed to be, a simple routine Uber drive from her job to her house. And she's on her phone, as most people are when they're riding in the back seat, and notices some movement going on in the front. So she looks away from her phone and notices that the Uber driver is masturbating in the front seat. Can you even imagine being in this situation?
I was in this situation on an airplane, but luckily I had people around me. But yeah, I mean, it's so weird. I don't know how to explain it. It's just something that's so private usually. And when someone just does something like that in public, you're just absolutely shocked. You can't even believe what you're actually looking at. You're just looking like, is this really happening right now? And then when you realize it's happening, you get kind of grossed out that a person would feel comfortable enough to do that in front of a complete stranger.
Yeah, and like your case with the airplane, it's like you're in a public space, but you're still somewhat in this private little section, So this girl's like trapped in this car, panicking about what to do. She doesn't want to call the cops, and she doesn't necessarily want to speak up because, clearly if he's doing this, he's not right. So she's afraid she's going to get raped or assaulted or something. So she's kind of sitting there like, I don't know what to do. She notices the doors are locked. It's really scary to be in this position as a woman. So she ends up texting her boyfriend and her mom her location, and she texts her mom and says, I'm going to be home in about 10 minutes. Can you please wait for me outside because this Uber driver's penis is out and I don't know what to do. So
I can't imagine getting that call from you or text.
Well, first of all, you have your notifications off. So I was thinking if we were in this situation, I texted you. You probably wouldn't even get it until way later.
I know. I am really bad with that, but I just don't like hearing my phone.
Yeah. So, they pull up to the house and she had to ask him to unlock the doors. And then when he gets out, he just said, thank you so much in a creepy tone, which absolutely disgusting. So she reported this to Uber, to which they wouldn't let her know immediately or not if he was fired or banned from the app because of their, quote, privacy policies, which she was like, well, I certainly don't feel safe ordering one ever again in this area because what if she got him again, not knowing if he still had a job or not. But she also reported it to the police and he ended up getting arrested for indecent behavior. But the worst part of this story is that he pled guilty and was sentenced to 4 weeks, which in my opinion is definitely not enough time. And then they ended up just scrubbing the whole sentence and he got a fine.
Yeah, I mean, if I was her, I would be most scared that he knows that it was her that reported, I'm sure. And now he knows where she lives. Yeah. And he's embarrassed. He had to, maybe had to do some time, but not even that. He just had to go to court. He had to hire a lawyer. And you don't want him coming back and retaliating because of that. So I would be scared just in that circumstance. And I would actually love to hear in the comment section of YouTube how you guys feel about this. If you've ever had an experience with Uber or a rideshare in particular of a situation where you didn't feel safe. It does make me think of something that I've thought of before on several occasions, that I wish that 911 somehow had a texting system.
They do. So,
oh, okay. But where? Because I don't know about it.
So Uber does, so this case was in Australia, so I don't know if this feature is rolled out in every country that Uber is available, but in the US at least, they have a safety toolkit. So you can open Uber when you're on the ride and there's a safety toolkit so you could open it, and a couple options are you could I could share my location with you so you could follow the track of the ride because if you're in an Uber it's geo-tracking your entire drive. So that's an option. You could send it to a loved one, or there's an option to call 911. I'm assuming if you're in an accident. There's another option, however, to contact 911 via a texting system. So I believe at first it matches you with somebody that works at ADT, the security system, and you talk to them until you feel like you're dropped off and you're safe. But if the situation is more severe and you feel like you're in immediate danger, they can set you up with this 911 texting service where it'll then give the police department your location of the ride and follow them. And I'm assuming in really severe situations, they will track down the ride and pull the car over.
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking in general. Like, I think about if somebody breaks into your house at night and you hear someone in your house when no one's supposed to be downstairs or something, if you could just text some 911 system and say, hey, can you send an officer to my house? I think someone's in my house.
Yeah.
Because once you make a phone call and you have to talk to someone, you're making noise, right? And there's probably lots of situations where you can't make a phone call because even think about that in cases of domestic abuse or something like that. It's just, it would be kind of a cool thing to have. I don't know. I always think about that. But yeah, I mean, with Uber, it's scary because you are going in the car with a complete stranger, which is what we've been told our whole life not to do, right?
Yeah, and it is really weird because Uber says they do background checks and everything, and even if that's true, somebody doesn't have to have committed something in the past to commit something in the future. So we have to think about that. People can very well have ill intentions their entire life and not have technically committed a crime or not been caught enough to have it come up on a background check. So that's scary. And I was even at a party last month where I had taken an Uber to my husband's work, like a month or two ago, and the driver I had was fine enough, but I got in the car and he said, getting into trouble tonight. And I'm like, okay.
Ew.
And, he was an older guy. And Ricky was like, he was probably just being a boomer about it.
Like a dad.
Yeah, exactly. And, I don't know. I'm just like, you don't understand what it's like to be a girl and just have somebody say a comment like that. Cause I'm like, great, this guy picked me up at my house. So there's like.
And Maria, let's give it some context actually that ever since Maria was like legit 10 years old, she has accused every single person in her presence of being
I have not accused
like
them.
A stranger.
No, I've not accused every single person to their face.
Well, in your head, yeah, like you're always just like, that person was outside of our apartment, and I'd be like, well, they live next door. No, they're a pedophile.
No, yeah,
like,
I'm overly cautious of people, so I just think. I don't know. It just didn't set a good tone for my ride. So then, and then the guy proceeded to dump his entire life story on me, the 40-minute drive. So when I just wanted to read my Kindle. So I'm at a party later that night just talking about how funny it is that this situation happened. And every girl at this party is like proceeding to, everybody's telling their own version of a creepy Uber story. One of which where this girl said she was a little tipsy after going out. She was being responsible, called an Uber. And, she was in this car, and then he went down a really weird alleyway, which is off the normal trajectory of their ride, so much so that she got out of the car in the middle of a bad neighborhood at 3:00 in the morning. It was like, I'm not getting back in there with you.
Oh my God. We have to see if we could figure out how to get phone calls and do like a creepy Uber confessions hour or something like that.
Yeah. So, obviously a bunch of incidents had to happen for them to unroll this feature enroll this
that's
feature.
what I was going to say.
So I don't know if this, if you're from Australia and you take Uber, let us know if this is a feature. I even understand from her perspective, if it was a feature, just still being so scared to even, attempt to fix this in the car, being scared that he might turn around and assault her between the time somebody got to the car and that she doesn't know if they're going to contact him or something. So I just think this is really scary, and we don't realize how vulnerable we are in these rideshare situations sometimes.
Or on airplanes.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the celebrity news.
Nina Dobrev, most popularly known for being in Vampire Diaries, she is recovering after getting in an accident with an e-bike. So she's in a relationship with Olympic snowboarder Shaun White, who I will say was my first ginger celebrity crush ever.
Ew.
AKA
he is like so not
the
cute,
flying tomato. He's way better now that he got a short haircut. But they're always posting, he's an Olympic snowboarder and a skateboarder too. So he is an adventures guy, and they're always posting online about these adventurous things they're doing. So she went on Instagram and posted a series of pictures saying how it started versus how it's going. So the first picture was her on this e-bike, and the second picture of her was in a hospital with a neck brace, a leg brace, and an IV and everything. So she hasn't really come forward and said the exact details of this accident, but we know she was involved in an accident related to this bike.
These bikes are they're kind of a misconception of a bike when really it's kind of a low-grade motorcycle in a way. And people, especially like parents, buy them for their kids, and they can go up to 30 miles an hour almost, which is double of the fastest you could do on the bike by yourself for an average person, right? And of course, like the emergency rooms and stuff are just seeing more severe injuries with these e-bikes because they go so fast. And if you look at this picture of her on a bike, it looks like she's on a motorcycle. That's not a bike. It's freaking huge. So just the weight of that could hurt you too. And then there's this other weird phenomenon going on that people aren't wearing helmets as much as they used to. So hospitals are seeing this huge increase in head trauma because people are especially falling off of these e-bikes. So it's essentially like being on a motorcycle that's going 25 or 30 miles an hour and falling off to the ground and hitting your head. So of course, you're going to have major head trauma.
Well, the same could be said. There's these e-scooters and popping up all over cities.
Yeah, I hate those.
I actually fell off one in Venice like 5 years ago and hurt my leg pretty bad because Ricky decided to do a flip trick right in front of me as an inexperienced. And we all know I'm like the most uncoordinated person in our entire family. So when I had to stop quickly, it didn't go well. But yeah, they're all over cities. And, when you have to download an app. I think Lyft actually has a feature on there where you could get a scooter, and then there's other ones. But when you are setting up the app to unlock the bike to ride around, it'll tell you to wear a helmet. But I'm like, I'm in a different city. Where am I getting a helmet right now? I don't give a shit, right? So I think that's most people's attitude.
Yeah, and they're weird. Like, the only thing I just think it would just be totally improbable because even if you made helmet liners, let's say, and just hung them on every one of the scooters, like we just saw them in LA and they do look fun. But I said to the kids, like, I can't in good conscience let you do this because you're going to get hurt. And I can't put you on here with me. Like, we're going to fall and get hurt. And this is everything I talk about all the time. We can't do this. But helmets are different sizes for different heads. So you wouldn't even be able to really do something like that with the rideshare thing. So it's just, you just have to take your chance. But
I'd also just be worried about like lice and whatever else and just them not properly
well, that's
cleaning.
why I was saying, like, if they had liners, you know what I mean? But not that that would really, I don't know what I'm even saying, but I think about that too. I saw so many people on them and I'm just like, God, they're in the street. It just makes me nervous. And probably overall, if you did the statistics, how many are used a day versus like how many injuries there are, it's probably not that bad. But the medical associations actually recommend that, especially if children get them, that they should take like specific classes for e-bikes because they're just different than regular bicycles that parents don't usually understand. Okay, let's get into freak accidents.
So a flight going from London to Singapore experienced such severe turbulence that one person died and 30 people were injured. So on the trip, the Boeing 777, a shocker, hit an air pocket over Thailand and requested to make an emergency landing in Bangkok. So I always hear this term air pocket, but what is it? So according to Google, it's a disruption in the air current that could cause a plane to shake or may result in a temporary loss of attitude. Like, total new fear unlocked, right?
A loss of attitude.
Should we just change the freak accidents to be called new fear unlocked? I feel like...
No. Well, yeah, because I was listening to our local New Jersey radio today, and a pilot called and was talking about these things and was just saying, like, he was making it equivalent to driving in black ice. Like, it's something that you really can't see coming and it just happens and it could be really severe and there's kind of nothing that they can do about it.
So the plane was carrying 211 passengers and 18 crew members. So 30 of them were injured, some of them with some life-threatening injuries, mostly to the head. I can only assume based on previous stories we reported on that they weren't wearing seatbelts, which caused them to lift and smack their heads on the ceiling. And then...
Well, apparently it was when they were being served breakfast, so there's a high probability that at that time, when you're on the plane and they start giving you stuff pretty early in the morning, it's like maybe people are just waking up or they want to get up and go to the bathroom. So if the seatbelt sign wasn't on, like, it's totally probable that people were standing up and going to the bathroom.
Yeah, totally. So... Yes, a 73-year-old British national was the one that died, and they believe it was due to a heart attack. So,
yeah, I mean, they said he had a history of heart problems, but they didn't really determine what his cause of death was. I think they also were saying that this was one of the first cases of a death caused in the case of severe
So I was
turbulence.
going to say that. So I don't necessarily consider myself a nervous flyer, but everybody's been on a flight where there's been some, shady turbulence situation that doesn't make you feel good. So I've always had this internal piece that I've heard that nobody's ever died from turbulence. It's always just a weird thing that happens. And now, I mean, I guess maybe if this guy had a heart attack, you could say he died from the turbulence setting on the heart attack, maybe, but nobody's ever died from like something happening during turbulence besides having a heart attack. So
yeah, and they're saying like you should in that case, like if you ever, I never had an experience of that. Hopefully, I never do, but I don't want to look around at people around me to be like, is this normal? Because I've only been on a plane like under 10 times in my life, probably. So I want to be like, okay, looking at people, is this something that typically happens or are we about to die? Like, what's going on here? But maybe you should just look at the flight attendant because they're the ones that are on planes all the time.
Well, yeah, and nothing's worse. Like when we were just flying into Denver a couple weeks ago, there was basically no turbulence the entire flight except when Ricky was in the bathroom and then when I was in the bathroom like 2 hours late. And then when we were landing, they were like, "Oh, the weather's a little rough down there, so landing's going to be a little shaky." It was like so, yeah. Yeah, I'm still gonna hold my somewhat peace that nobody's really died from turbulence besides a heart condition that might have been set off from it. So
yeah, but just because people don't die, they've had like major head trauma, concussions, brain bleeds. I mean, it's not like that could be a life affecting thing.
Yeah.
Altering thing.
Yeah. So in another plane related incident in Indonesia, there was a passenger ladder against an Airbus plane. Due to an alleged miscommunication, the workers on the ground had moved the ladder away from the plane, even though the door to the plane was open, which is against aviation rules. So, inside of the plane, another worker was standing by the door, didn't realize the ladder had been moved, just innocently took a step backward and fell several feet until he hit the ground. He's okay, but he has injuries related to it, and there's an investigation happening as to exactly why the ladder was moved, even though they're saying it was just a simple miscommunication.
Oh my God. It looks so terrifying, though. I think I looked at it like there's a guy standing right underneath. So just estimating it's definitely high. It's around 12 feet, probably, maybe even a little bit higher of a fall. But that's like a huge fall. And I just can't imagine how scared he was. Luckily, it happened so quickly and he didn't fall and hit his head. But I'm sure he probably has a broken leg or something out of it.
Yeah, so the whole thing was caught on video, which is kind of nuts. But
yeah, you should check the link out and click on the video because it is rather frightening.
All right, next, an Amtrak train that was heading from NYC to Niagara Falls struck a pickup truck, killing 3 people. The 3 people were a 69-year-old male, a 66-year-old female, and a 6-year-old male. So on my assumption, I'm going to say it's grandparents with their grandchild.
Yeah, I don't know. I did see that they identified them, but they didn't really say, at least in the articles I saw, what their relationship was. But it seems as if they were trying to cross the tracks and the horn was beeping. I don't know why they tried to cross the tracks, but the arms to protect the tracks went down and kind of trapped the car there.
Well,
right?
It seems like the arms started going down and then simultaneously the car like broke down, which is why they couldn't get out fast enough, or it stuttered or something where it couldn't get past the gate in time, and then the train hit it on the tracks. But this is actually the second accident that's happened in this small town in New York where a train has hit a car this year.
I mean, it's like if you don't go on the tracks, this doesn't happen. So I wouldn't even consider this to be Amtrak's problem.
But
like if you,
yeah, but like if you're just, if you're just driving and your car just happens to break down, like that's not your fault either.
Yeah, I know. I think I don't know what happened. Like when we just we were in Las Vegas and drove to Joshua Tree from there. We were driving through like the old Route 66 and there were all these kinds of railroad tracks there with no signs of other life like gas stations or houses or anything. and it would start flashing really fast before this huge train was coming. Like, luckily it was so far, there was nothing around, so you could see the train coming. But I did think, like, wow, this came on pretty fast in relation to how fast the train approached where we needed to cross the street.
Yeah, like, I'm wondering if I don't know, because I'm only thinking more into it because they said there was a second car this year that it also happened to. I'm wondering if it's a case where, you're crossing over and then the bar drops before, like, the sound comes down or something, which then makes you get stuck, right?
Yeah, that's what it seems like happened. They said that they were stuck in between the bar.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering if the car just so happened to break down at the same time, or if there was a signaling issue and maybe the bars lowered before the sound went off so they didn't know not to cross at that exact moment. It's just really terrible. They were all pronounced dead at the scene, and Amtrak's reported that none of the passengers were affected or anything.
I would hate to have been just... I do feel like I was on a Paco train once when someone jumped in front of it and it was like it shut down and it was like this big thing, and just being like, if you take the train every day, that's just kind of bound to happen, I feel, if you're a frequent user of a train.
Yeah, I even, when we were driving, or when we were on the Zephyr train, there was a lot of branches along the train tracks, and a couple cows had, like, broken out of the fenced area near the track, and we almost slammed into one, like, on the side. It was literally walking up towards the train, and it almost hit it. And I would have felt horrible if we hit a farm animal, let alone plowed into an entire car full of people. It's just so scary.
Yeah, especially a little kid. That sucks.
Yeah. So our next one, a 15-year-old girl and her friend were wakeboarding in Biscayne Bay in Florida when another boat suddenly hit her and then left the scene. So the boat she was wakeboarding from retrieved her body, which was covered in blood. It was too late and she had died. Witnesses gave police a detailed description of the boat that had hit her, which led them to this 78-year-old man who claims he had no idea his boat was involved in the accident until police came to question him.
I don't know. I almost kind of believe this just because of, and this is just the story that his lawyer's given, so you have to always take that. But he's 78. He's been boating for like 50 years. He doesn't drink alcohol. And when there's video footage of him pulling up to the dock and everything after the accident happened, he pulled his boat in and it was in plain sight of everybody to see and kind of like strolled around like nothing happened. He wasn't trying to hide evidence or looked panicked in any way. I mean, but he's an older guy and maybe that's part of the problem. You know what I mean? Like, we know some people that are 78 that are really sharp and some that are like really old. So maybe, that's why they don't put in writing what age you have to take someone's driver's license or boating license away, because they may not see well anymore or just may not have may not be as alert as they once were.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think of all angles because I'm like, boats are really loud, right? So if people were screaming immediately, would he even be able to hear them? And then are there policies as far as driving close to other boats, or was the boat that they were wakeboarding from following policy? I'm just really curious what they're going to find in this case.
Yeah, like I would think if there's boats where people are getting off the boats and either swimming in the water or wakeboarding or anything, that there should be a rule that moving boats should be nowhere near those boats.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because this would happen often, right?
Or like, was there a speed limit and he wasn't going the speed limit? Like, I don't know. I'm not familiar with
I don't know anything
life.
about the boating world. I am interested in it. We went on a boat in Cape Cod a couple times and we went on the fire boat and it was so awesome. And I was like, if I lived here, I could totally get into this. It's kind of fun because it's cool. Like, they have restaurants there that you could just leave your dock at your house and go to the restaurant and get food and go back and never have to go on the street. It's just kind of cool.
Yeah, that's super cool.
It's like another way to move around. It's pretty cool. This episode is brought to you by The Gross Room. Only once in a while, I put The Gross Room on sale, and this time has come. It is a Memorial Day sale, and it is going to be only $20 for a year of gross. And in The Gross Room, I started it back in 2019. There are thousands of posts, videos, photos, articles written by some guests. There's just so much information on there, lots of audio too as well. And Maria and I actually have been doing Mother Knows Death. We did about 50 episodes before we even came on the air to you guys. So if you're interested in listening to any of that, it's just so much stuff. It'll keep you busy for hours and hours and hours a day. And we put out new stuff every day. So you can go to thegrossroom.com, and the sale starts when does the sale start?
On Sunday.
On Sunday, yes. And we will see you there. Let's get into violent crime.
So in Brazil, a woman has been sentenced to jail for about 4.5 years after cutting her husband's penis off and flushing it down the toilet. So this one's a doozy, so buckle up. After learning her husband had sex with her 15-year-old niece multiple times, the woman then lured her husband to bed, promising him, quote, kinky sex. By the way, the age of consent in Brazil is 14 years old, so at first I was thinking this story was like you're a sex predator, so I'm going to cut your dick off, but this article is painting it out to be it was just an incident of jealousy. So she tied his arms and legs to the bed with her underwear, turned the lights off, and then busted out a razor and cut his dick off. She said she flushed it down the toilet so surgeons couldn't reattach it, and shockingly, after the trial and she was sentenced, they made up.
Yeah, this is just a pure story of like how do people live, right? This lady looks insane. You could tell she's insane just by the way her eyebrows look, okay? If you look at the article, she just looks like you don't want to mess with this chick, right? But I mean, we actually covered this story, Rhea. I don't know if you remember when it first happened when we were doing the podcast in the gross room. And now she just got sentenced recently. And that's why we're talking about this again. But of course, my first thought is like, okay, a grown man's having sex with a 15-year-old. Good. I don't care. Like, I don't feel bad about this. But the legal age of consent is 14 years old in Brazil. So that sounds like a Brazil problem. And it's actually terrible for women that live in Brazil, because I'm sure young women especially are getting taken advantage of all the time by older dudes like this. But I love that she flushed his penis down the toilet. I mean, that's just pretty amazing. And she had it thought out because she didn't want it to be able to be reattached. I mean, she's kind of a crazy person, but even more of a crazy person is the next story.
Yeah. So in the next case, police in Grand Junction, Colorado got a call from a local hotel from a hysterical woman saying she believed her boyfriend was dead but could not provide any more context on what happened. So police get to the hotel and notice there's blood all over the bed. They said a naked, unresponsive male was lying on his back with his feet under the bed. So they started to perform CPR on him and then noticed that his penis was missing and it had apparently been cut off his body. He also had a stab wound in his leg. So he was pronounced dead at the scene. Officers found then a, quote, severed penis in the trash can inside of the hotel bathroom. So the woman told an officer that she and the boyfriend had previously got into an argument because at first he wouldn't let her go to sleep and she had threatened to stab him. Then the next morning she thought he had maybe gotten her pregnant again and they were arguing about the paternity of the baby, to which she then stabbed him in the leg and then cut his penis off. So she said throughout the day he started getting cold and was worried he was going to die. So, she went to the store, she bought rubbing alcohol, antibiotics, and beer, but she said she forgot to buy bandages. Like, I don't think that was fixing the situation. And then after he started getting more cold throughout the day, she gave him ibuprofen, water, and, quote, greens. And then he eventually died. So she was arrested and charged with second-degree murder.
This is actually so psychotic. Like, she stabbed the guy and everything, and then she kind of tried to keep him alive a little bit, and while he was suffering and bleeding to death. And that doesn't happen either. Well, I lie. If he gets stabbed in the leg in the femoral artery, that could happen pretty fast, but I don't know where the stab wound was. I don't know if it went into a major artery, but even amputating the penis, it wouldn't cause someone to bleed to death really fast, like it would if you cut off somebody's leg or arm or something like that, or slit their neck. But I just don't I don't see, like, I feel like she's seriously having some kind of mental breakdown. Went to the store, poured alcohol on that probably felt real great.
God, I can't even imagine.
And just, I mean, just think about you're in CVS and you're buying tampons or something, and the girl next to you just see, oh, she's got a guy at the hotel room that she's buying alcohol for to put on his penis that she just cut
I
off.
also imagined her putting one little normal sized Band-Aid like over the area and then like walking in on that scene of just this tiny Band-Aid like covering where she just cut his entire penis off. It's
Well, and think that's the first thing I thought of when I heard of this story. Like, these poor cops and first responders just walk into this crazy shit. Like, what? Like, all the time. We hear it every single week that they're just walking into these crazy situations. And I just, the story is even weirder because if the guy got injured, like, why didn't he try to call 911 when she left? Did he lose that much blood that he just was too weak to move? Or,
I mean, you don't know. Maybe he had some mental things going on, or maybe he was too weak and he couldn't move, or she made sure like the phone was disconnected. We just don't know what was going on.
They were in a hotel, right? So, I mean, there is a phone in most
she might have
rooms.
Disconnected it. Like, you just don't know the lengths she went to.
That's like another thing too, right? So what happens in hotel rooms that you don't even know about? So these people leave, she gets arrested. He goes to the morgue. You have this big blood spot on the floor because of a penis bleeding out. And what do? Just rip up the carpet and put in a new one. And then the next, they're renting it out like the next week or something.
So actually, when we were in Vegas, when we were on the elevator, 2 of the cleaning people got on with us and they were just like clearly exhausted. And, Ricky just has to talk to everybody. So he was like, oh, did you guys see some wild shit? And they were like, you have no idea what we see here. We could write novels about stuff.
Oh, I know. In Vegas, especially, I can't even imagine.
They said
I'd actually really like to know some of the stories.
So they said just that morning, because it was Cinco de Mayo the day before, that they were just like, we just found, they're like, so many people were so beyond blackout drunk the day before that they found like underwear and ice buckets and just like really weird stuff in people's rooms.
Oh my God.
But I would love to read a book written about what they find. I think that would be so interesting.
Yeah, because it's just, you hear all these stories about even, I don't remember what it was, but some like older rock star, Bon Jovi, or like one of those kinds of people. I don't know if it was specifically them, but just like getting these hotel rooms back in the 80s with these crazy parties and like having live animals there and just complete mayhem. Like, and then you have to think like some poor person's coming in the morning and having to clean that up. I feel terrible just because my hair falls out everywhere or something, and they probably love getting just like normal rooms to clean up after.
Oh, yeah. All right. So our next story, in 1998, a teenager had gone missing in Algeria during the Algerian Civil War. When he never returned, his family believed he was just simply a casualty of war, although they never had confirmation of this, and his mother believed for the rest of her life that he was still alive, maybe even close to them, and she died in 2013 without any answers. So now at 45 years old, 26 years later, he has been rescued from a neighbor's house only 650 feet from his family's home.
I know, that's so, I mean, it's a good story, but is he okay? Like, mentally okay?
I doubt he's okay if he's been kidnapped for 26 years. And
they said they found him under hay or something?
Yeah, so a 61-year-old man was arrested in connection with the kidnapping. This is what's kind of unclear to me. Somebody who knew the suspect posted on social media saying they believed this guy was involved in the kidnapping, which then caused police and the family to go to the property and look for him. So I'm kind of unclear how the association was made, or if he was at the house and saw something, or it was like a years long, this guy's a creeper, blah, 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 So anyway, they go to the house and they found the guy in a haystack in the backyard. And when they found him, the suspect tried to flee the scene, although when they first arrived, he seemed really calm and collected.
Well, think about this. A grown man is kidnapping a teenage boy. Like, nothing good is coming of that, right?
No, and what...
I don't even want to think about what that kid's life was
like.
No,
and what's even like weirder to add to the story is that the family of the victim, their dog was constantly sniffing around this guy's property, and then one day showed up dead from a poisoning. And it's weird that the family didn't kind of pick up on,
I mean, maybe they did. They could have possibly even searched around there and just been like, why is this dog always on this person's property? It's a little weird.
I think just when you're in a level of grief like that, of losing somebody, just really obvious signs just go by you. And there also just has to be this complete disbelief that it could quite literally be happening in your backyard.
It's such a shame. And it's more a shame that the mom died before getting any peace with this.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, at least he's, been rescued, and hopefully he could go through some treatment to try to have somewhat normal quality of life after this.
Yeah.
All right, so our last violent crime. Last week, an investigation uncovered that an HIV-positive sex worker made contact with over 200 clients after a positive diagnosis in 2022.
I have a lot of questions about this because they're trying to say that this person figured out that they were HIV positive and they were still continuing to be a sex worker. And I don't know what the rules are because nowadays there's antiretroviral medications that they can lighten your load of HIV so much that it's not even detectable. And let's say a husband and wife are together and the husband has HIV and the wife doesn't. If they're on the proper medication and their viral load is so low that you can't detect it anymore, they're considered to be safe to have sex with each other at that point. So I'm wondering if she was diagnosed 2 years ago, I'm assuming that she hasn't gotten any treatment for it. And that's why they're still considering this to be, that's why we put it in the violent crime section, because this is, you're giving someone a disease that could be deadly without letting them know about it, especially when you do know about it.
Yeah, so they determined through phone records that she was in contact with at least 211 people in business transactions with them. So now they're working to contact all 211 individuals that may have been affected by this, and they're encouraging them to all be brutally honest so they could, follow the line of exactly how far this is going to go.
I don't really know why this is much of a story. Like, if you're having sex with the sex worker, are you assuming that they're like really clean and safe? I mean, there has to be some level of you're having sex with a person that have sex with so many people that there's a certain level of risk associated with it, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's messed up if she knows about it and she's doing it, but like you really shouldn't be having sex with a sex worker without protection.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know. I guess there's a lot more to this. Maybe we don't even understand yet, but
yeah, maybe I don't know. I'm just kind of like, isn't that like,
because they also said,
isn't that why it's frowned upon?
Well, they also said this sex worker they found this sex worker because she was part of a sex trafficking organization. So I'm sure there's a lot more to have to do with this, which is what makes the criminal charges. So,
all right, medical news.
All right, an NYC law student is claiming her addiction to eating cheese got so bad that she had to go to a $6,000 per week rehab. So in 2018, this girl says she started craving cheese and binged on the, quote, cheapest bricks of white cheddar and Parmesan almost daily. Although I'm going to, let's take it in perspective for a second. She said she used to buy her cheese at Whole Foods, which if you're looking,
she's a
yeah,
rich
if
kid,
you're looking for the
on.
cheapest cheese, you're not going to Whole Foods. So she started off her addiction with white cheddar and Parmesan almost daily. She said she would just straight up eat the block of cheese with her hands and eventually was eating 5.5 blocks of cheese per week, which is so much. So she rapidly gained weight until she hit 172 pounds. I guess her normal weight is around 123 pounds, which she's now at now. But she had stopped menstruating for 5 months during her binge and became at risk for type 2 diabetes. It got so bad that her mother sent her to a rehab in Hilton Head, costing nearly $6,000 per week to treat the eating disorder.
This story just reeks of what you would say privilege, right? Like, oh, you went to Hilton Head for a couple weeks at $6,000 for a retreat because of your gourmet cheese addiction. Like, it's serious. And the reason that I'm even more annoyed is because when you look at the article, there's like these weird pictures of her
all over
all
cheese
like glammed up, like posing with cheese. And then like with her Dior bag and the cheese and stuff, and you're like, you kind of suck, lady. And there, she really does. But there's this doctor who authored a book called The Cheese Trap, he wrote that cheese contains opiates that attach to the same brain receptors as fentanyl or other narcotics, and you actually could get addicted to the casein in cheese, and it's called a dairy addiction, but they would call it like a, what do they call it? Crack?
They called it dairy crack.
Dairy crack, yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I just think this
But don't worry, she took Ozempic and lost the 50 pounds, and now she only has it when she's stressed out.
Yeah, this story just reeks of bullshit to me. So, like, I don't know. It just...
Yeah, well, you got an article on the New York Post, so this is what you wanted.
Yeah, but you really want to be
Congrats.
known for the girl that went to rehab because of cheese. Like, people, it's giving desperate. On to the next one. I don't think we covered this on Mother Knows Death because of when it came out in September of last year. I know we did on the Gross Room podcast, but a 10th grader had died in September of last year after eating the Pocky chip as part of the One Chip Challenge. So the challenge called for participants to eat this chip and then see how long they could go without consuming other food and water. It was really to see how well you could tolerate the spice level. So now the autopsy results are in, saying he died from eating a large quantity of chili pepper extract and also had a congenital heart defect. So what are your thoughts on this?
So sometimes a 10th grader is like how old? 15 years old?
15, 16, yeah.
So there's sometimes that kids that are teenagers might have a heart defect that wasn't bad enough their entire life that clearly like they made it to 10th grade without anybody knowing. So it's not like they can't live with it. But something can trigger it that could make it cause death. Like in this case, this capsaicin that's used with these chips, this extra strong chili powder that's causing these people to get really sick. This isn't actually the only person that's gotten sick doing this challenge, which is why they eventually pulled it off of the market at this point. But he was born. So when they did the autopsy, they found that his heart was big, or he had cardiomegaly. And he also had a condition that was called myocardial bridging of the left anterior descending artery, which normally the coronary arteries are above the heart muscle. And in this case, it's within the heart muscle. And obviously the kid's been living with this and this has been fine. And maybe if he didn't have any kind of super traumatic body events the rest of his life, he could have lived with this and lived to be an older person. Or even had an issue where he went to the hospital and they detected it and were able to repair it. But in this case, it seems so innocent because it's a chip, but it's trauma to your body. I mean, I had, we went to that restaurant for Gabe's graduation, and I had, you know how they gave us two things of horseradish, and one was like a creamy one and one was like the high octane one? Well, I had the high octane one by accident. It's essentially like good wasabi. I took such a big spoonful of it though, because I thought it was like the watered down one. And it gave my body like the weirdest reaction. Like my nose was burning so bad. And I was like, oh my God, if that feeling never went away, I would want to die. It's like terrible. Like I felt like I was drowning underwater or something. And this spice could have the same exact kind of effect on a person and on their heart. And it was just too much for the heart to take. And in the literature, they said that this capsaicin can cause toxicity and cause ischemia to the heart muscle, which is death to the heart muscle, or like a heart attack, essentially. So maybe if another kid had something like this that didn't have an underlying heart defect, but like, you're marketing these towards kids. They're on TikTok.
So they came out and said the labeling says it's not for children and not for people with underlying health conditions, which how was this boy supposed to know he had an underlying health condition?
But it's on TikTok. So they go to the store.
Exactly. It's kind of what we were talking about with vaping. Like their labels say it's not for kids, but their marketing really isn't saying the same thing, especially when you're turning to TikTok, which is primarily used by children and Gen Z and younger people.
It should be locked up behind, like with the cigarettes then. I mean, really, how do you, if it's just in the aisle with like Lay's potato chips, because I saw it before this happened, because my kids actually pointed out to me and said, oh, that's the one chip challenge they showed me when we were traveling last year. They could have bought it.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
it was just there on the counter with everything else.
Especially if you're like a little, not a little kid, but if you're like a kid or a teenager and you're out by yourself without your parents there and you're at like the store and you might just be like, oh, I'll just grab it. It happens very innocently. They don't understand the severe effects this could have. So I understand like the company did what they're supposed to do, which is putting it on the label. But do you think a 15-year-old's going to give a shit what's on a label when all they see is
not even a little bit.
TikTok challenge and all their friends are talking about it? They just want to be cool and do the challenge.
Exactly.
All right, next. A husband and wife were having sex when the husband noticed discoloration on the wife's vulva. She immediately made an appointment with her doctor, who suggested she go to the hospital, fearing she might have cancer. And after 4 biopsies, she was told the lesions were precancerous and slow progressing.
So the best part of this story is that it's so cute because they're like an older couple, and she's like, I haven't looked down there in a long time. I love it. So yeah, he was just like, something don't look right down there. And they biopsied it, and she had what's called VIN, or a vulvar interepithelial lesion, which is, it's the same thing that you can get in the vagina or on the cervix. And it's due to HPV changes. And when you have viral changes in the cells, it could start making them look a little bit funny. And it could be precancerous changes that eventually, if you don't get it treated, can turn to cancer. So most of the cases of VIN are caused by an HPV infection with a higher risk of HPV. And hopefully she's able to just get it treated. And usually if you go and get treatment, then you're good. And they'll do testing too to see if it's a high risk strain of HPV or a low risk strain of HPV. But it's kind of cool because if she wasn't going to look down there for another couple years, right, it could have eventually turned to something a little bit more severe, either like a higher interepithelial lesion or even cancer. So this is see something, say something, husband.
Yeah, I do want to say, I don't think we stress the importance enough of our sexual partners. If you notice something's not normal in these areas, like I don't have the flexibility to bend down and really look up in there, and a mirror can only show you so much. So if you see a mole or anything that looks weird, it's definitely better to say something and have it checked out than just be like, maybe that's whatever,
For sure.
All right, our next one. A new study has come out suggesting it may be beneficial if people wait longer to pull the plug on life support.
This is kind of my favorite story of the week because it's something that a lot of people have to deal with. Is you have a loved one and they get injured or they're older or whatever happens, and they end up going into a coma, and then they go on life support, and they come to you and say, okay, your family member is on life support right now. They cannot live on their own. When would you like to kind of pull the plug and end their life? And this study was done by the Journal of Neurotrauma, and it included 1,392 traumatic brain injuries. And of these, they compared 80 patients that had severe injuries who died after life support was withdrawn. So that's when the family decided to pull the plug. And then 80 similar patients whose life support was not withdrawn, which would be me, somebody that's like, I'm not pulling the plug ever, right? So they did want to emphasize that most of the patients whose life support was continued still ended up dying anyway in the hospital within about 6 days. But 42% of them, which is a lot in my opinion, who continued life support eventually recovered, and they either had some degree of independence after their injury, and some of them even went on to have a completely, resume their normal life.
That's a huge number.
I know, it is. And it's like, oh my God. Now, I mean, I kind of regret ever seeing this, because now if I'm ever forced to be in this situation, I'm going to be like,
yeah, but
obviously
isn't it
I'm not going
better to wait, even if it ends up not being, you'd rather wait and see if it works out than just be like, well, I guess this is it.
Yeah, it's just sad, because you're like, well, how many people decided to do this because they were told to do it, and then maybe they could have recovered.
Yeah, I mean, maybe with this study and some more additional research, the kind of qualifications for it will alter over time. That's a huge number of people.
I know. And when they say, I mean, you don't want your family, because sometimes they'll come to you and say, like, listen, even if they do survive, they're going to be a vegetable their whole life. And they say things like that. And you're like, well, I don't want to do that to my loved one. Of course, you don't want to do that. But they're saying that some people like completely resumed their regular life. Like, oh my God.
Okay, the EU has opened a formal investigation into Meta over concerns that it isn't doing enough to safeguard the mental and physical health of children who use Facebook and Instagram. This is not really surprising to me.
Why is it only in the EU? Why isn't it in America too?
Because everything, like, think about everything. Think about processed foods, for example, in Europe. They have such strict regulations over there about what can be in the food and everything that we have seen over studies over so many years that they have way less health problems associated with things like that. And, you know, it just kind of shows that they care a lot more about people over there's physical and mental health, seeing as they put their resources into checking these things.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You might be able to talk to people over there that might disagree with that, but I see what you're saying. I just think that, you know how like the World Health Organization got together for the whole COVID situation? Like, why isn't this considered a public health crisis as well, really?
Just because we have different laws in different countries, so.
It's, yeah. I mean, we talk about this all the time, and I mean, it's like, all I could say is kids are fucked. Like, what else could you say at this point? It's not going away, right? So we're going to have to teach the kids how to use it. But just, we have kids now that are 9 and 11 years old, and it's like, we're not getting them phones, but they have iPads and this and that. And they're getting to the age where they want to text their friends and this and that. And we have to sit them down all the time and say, like, this is forever on the phone. If you send a picture, if you send a text.
Even think about a couple of stories ago. So like, the girls don't have TikTok, right? But how did they know about the one chip challenge? Because somebody they know will always know what's going on the internet and bad things going on, right? So you have to think of just that.
Yeah, or they just put it on YouTube or whatever. Like, I mean, it's the same. It's all the same thing. Yes, exactly. They knew about it. They heard it in school, wherever. Like, they also heard about the Kylie Jenner lip challenge, which we know that one of my kids did that with the stupid water bottle.
Oh my
and
God,
like,
I can't.
But this is. I know. But it's just like, you can't teach because think about when you were a kid and your parents were talking to you and you were just like, whatever. Like,
I was so scared of you that I listened to everything you said.
Yeah, well, you're not normal of a kid because that's not normally how kids react. But I think, I don't know, like, and this wasn't really an issue with you when you were a kid because it wasn't as much as, but now it's like kids could send stuff now and it could affect them in 20 years from now. Like, they don't understand how, like, it's the same thing we talk about with boomers on Facebook. They don't understand how the internet works.
Oh my God, literally.
They don't understand that, like, everybody could see everything that they're saying and doing and stuff. It's like we're in this weird situation of life where we're sandwiched in the middle of two generations that don't understand how the internet works.
It is really interesting when you put it that way, because it's like, you think a 60-year-old that has lived life would just grasp the concept, but they just cannot. And it's funny to associate them with a 10-year-old child's brain.
And if you talk to any friend, I think I was talking to Aunt Kara about this, and they live in Minnesota, and her mother and stuff. And it's just like, you could talk to any person that has parents that are on Facebook, and they will all say the same shit about, like, oh my God, my mom posted this or this, that, and the other. The best story is that we have to tell the story about my mom and her bras.
Oh, I was gonna tell about.
There's a lot of stories with my mom, but the one with the bras.
I was gonna talk about fuck Thierry.
No, you could talk about that
really
one too,
quick. It was some post that was like, change your first name to the word fuck and the first 4 letters of your last name to fuck. So I get this suggestion on my feed with my grandmother posting. Fuck Thierry instead of Beth Qualtieri. I was like, what are you doing?
No, all the time. And it's and like, God, it's something, I don't know. I don't really even understand how Facebook works. This is why I don't use it that much. But talk to any single person that has parents that are on Facebook, and they probably all will share the story about the bras.
Oh, yes. Wait, so Mama, like, whatever. You get notifications for any activity somebody you're friends with does. So we get a notification that she's gonna kill us for saying this. I'm sure I'm gonna get a text MFing me in a couple hours after we drop this. So then we get a notification that she's listed her bras for sale on Facebook Marketplace. So we're like, what are you doing? Everybody.
Yeah, and actually that's another thing that my father-in-law did too. Like, you list stuff on Facebook Marketplace, right? And everybody that you're friends with can see what you're selling. So which they don't think about that. And it's like,
Actually, there is a box you can click when you're listing something on Facebook Marketplace that says hide from friends.
yeah, but they don't know that shit. They would never do that. So it's like, your idea for the Instagram called Boomers Gone Wild is just genius. And you could get submissions all day long because of this.
Listen, Beth, we love you so much, but your internet behavior is out of control.
And it's not just those two things. It's like we screenshot shit to each other every day. It's like me and Maria and Louie have a group text, because I even see it like in my town Facebook group. It'll be like, tag a friend that does this, or did you remember this when you were a little kid? And it's always shit that, like, I don't even remember the toys, so it has to be geared towards like 60-year-old people and stuff, you know. And then they're all commenting underneath, and you read all the comments underneath, and you're like, oh my God, do these people know that their first and last name is attached to these comments?
They really
right now?
don't.
They just don't get it.
And they also don't know when they troll on our Facebook page that I also can see their name. So maybe be a nice person and don't troll us in the comments. Thank you. Anyway, so yeah, they're getting investigated. They're kind of just going to check out a couple of years ago, this whistleblower came forward saying that they knew that there was all these problems with younger people and behavior associated with the apps. And they said that wasn't true and all this stuff.
Okay.
But they're going to take a deep dive into their back end and look at their algorithm and their suggested content. I've spoken about this many times that, like, I don't necessarily consider myself to have a problem with the way I look right now. But when I was a teenager, as most teenage girls do, I was very self-conscious about my appearance, and that I would be constantly being fed ads about making my stomach flatter and taking weight loss drugs and dieting, and I don't really appreciate that, considering I've never really Googled that stuff, and I think I look okay right now. So, and I'm like, is it scanning my pictures and telling me I need to be skinnier, or is this just their fucked up way about going about things? So
it's just like, listen, me and Gabe send videos to each other on Instagram back and forth all day long, and it's cats, plants, and baseball, like, all the time. Both of our feeds are just filled with that. Like, it's just like, you just get what you look at.
Well, the whole, like, listening to you, I mean, people can't even deny anymore that they listen to you through your phone. There was even an entire storyline on Succession about this, where they had a similar app and they were gonna make some motto called "We're listening," and they were like, we can't put "We're listening" because then they'll know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was going to say that too, that there's this Netflix documentary, which I think everybody should watch. It's called like The Social Experiment or something.
I don't remember.
Or The Social Project. I don't know, something like that.
The
but
Social
it's about
Network, which is the movie. So.
No. This is like a documentary about social media and kids especially, and people that work for these companies and run these companies. In the very end of it, after your life is totally ruined from watching it, at the very end of it, they're like, does your child have social media? And they're like, no, I would never let them get it until they're 18. Like, every one of them says that. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
The people that created it and that are living like billionaires off of it say that. So Mark Zuckerberg, for example, like, do you think that his kids are going on that?
No. And
exactly.
If they go on it, they probably have their own special version that he coded himself, like, they get special treatment in it also. I don't know. I'm honestly not surprised by this at all. I wish the United States is taking some actions towards them, but it's just taken a lot longer here. So, whatever. I could talk about this for hours, but I'm sure people don't want to hear it for hours. I know. We could do a whole... And like, I get so pissed off about it, really. I just do. I just don't even want to talk about it anymore. All right, let's talk about other death news. Our last story today is local to us, and it's absolutely crazy. So, a few days ago, news broke in our area that a few cars and human remains have been pulled from the Cooper River in Camden, New Jersey. So my friend Rachel actually sent this to me first, and I had no idea this was going on, and then I sent it to you, and you were like...
Which I was sitting at the softball field talking about.
You were like, I'm all over this.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's because it's what, 10 minutes, not even 10 minutes away from our house. And
yeah,
it's like, oh, we pulled a couple cars out of the water and one of them had human remains. And you're like, okay, what? And then when you hear the story, which isn't 100% official yet because officials have not given a statement on this, but what happened was basically this woman went missing 14 years ago that lived in Camden, and she had a history of depression, and it was thought that she had possibly killed herself. And the family went to the police to try to find her. They knew what car she had, and like she never came up, and neither did her car. Like they just totally fell off the face of the planet. And of course, like your mom goes missing and stuff, you're going to fight for years and try to find out where she is and what happened, and like, is she still alive somewhere? Did she die? Is she okay? Whatever. And the police didn't help at all. So they ended up hiring this really cool organization that I never heard of called the United Search Corps. And these people got together with the family and, well, secret, we were probably going to interview these people soon so we could get more details on exactly how this went down.
I spoke to Doug this morning to try to get him on the show. He was an absolute sweetheart. So we're going to we're going to manifest their interview with them on this show because their organization is absolutely incredible. The story is really incredible. I'm really excited to hear about, the background, how he got to have this job, other cases they've worked on, and especially how they led to this. So I mean, we now know we don't know officially because they're waiting on DNA and everything like that, but we suspect that the one vehicle and the remains belong to this woman who was missing. But where did the other two cars come from?
Well, that's right behind the pub and stuff. It's like the sketchiest area ever.
Yeah.
You know where I'm talking about?
No, I know
like,
exactly where
drive.
It is. I used to drive by there every single day when I was going to school.
Yeah, it's like there's always murders happening back there, I'm certain. But so I'm not surprised that happened in that area. It's just, it's kind of cool to know that there's an organization out there that will listen to you and will help you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and we don't know the story behind it because like the authorities are being a little hush hush about it right now because they probably feel like a little dumb that some company found this car in the water with human remains and was like, hi, you can come now. Job's done.
Yeah.
So, and assuming that there was barely anything left, just skeletonized remains at that point after being in the water for 14 years. But they definitely know it's her car with her license plate on it. So, I mean, I guess there's a small, you have to, for forensics and everything, do DNA just to confirm. But it's a great story for the family, at least, that they have closure now, because just imagine, like we always say this, if one of your loved ones dies, it would be horrible, but it'd be even more horrible if they were missing and you didn't know what really happened to them.
No, I can't even imagine. Okay, so on to question of the day. Every Friday at the @MotherKnowsDeath Instagram account, we put a little question box up in the story. We even put a little box up yesterday asking for suggestions of guests. This show is tailored for you guys, so we want to know what you want on the show. So first question is, what is the best part of working in a hospital pathology lab?
First, let's say that a lot of people said they wanted Gabe on the show, and we just want to know why.
Yeah.
Like, he could be on the show if you want, but like, what are we going to talk about? You know what we could talk to him about, actually, because we wrote in the Gross Room yesterday. This is a good article if you guys are interested in joining for our sale, which starts on Sunday at thegrossroom.com. We wrote an article about spontaneous human combustion, and he was actually helpful in some of my theories as to why I didn't think that it was possible for that to happen.
You weren't taken. It didn't take a whole day to explain.
No,
one simple question.
It did. He's the worst at explaining things, but I did text him and got the answer that I wanted out of him, and it only took maybe a half hour instead of 5 hours. So yeah, we would have him on here if you have some questions you would like us to ask him or just talk about random fire stuff or whatever. But so sorry, I wasn't listening to what's your question?
What is the best part of working in a hospital pathology lab?
Oh, listen, everything's great about working in a hospital pathology lab except working for a corporation like a hospital. I mean, it's just great. You work for the most part. It's like some of my best friends forever I've worked with or went to school with, and it's like such a weird little part of the hospital because we don't have the same thing in common. Like if you work in radiology or you work in nursing on the floor or anything, it's like you all have patients, you all have the same kind of thing. And when we go, it's just we would go in the lab, we don't see patients, we just see each other. It's very dark sometimes. There's no windows. It's just like a different kind of a vibe. And sometimes you work with a really great group of people because lots of times they're like really weirdos, which is cool because it makes life interesting. And I mean, some people you work with are always going to be douchey or whatever, but you normally just get to meet a really great group of people. And just seeing pathology every day is just so cool. And then being able to figure stuff out when people are having problems and help them get a diagnosis and stuff. It's just really rewarding, and it's a great job. And it's a shame that it's ruined by corporation bullshit.
All right, next. Maria, what's your favorite thing to do with your sisters? Well, I would
Prince Tea
yeah,
House.
we go there. The Prince Tea House, which is a chain of tea places, opened up near us. So I like to take them to do that. That's really fun I mean, I took Lillian by myself for the first time, and then you and Lulu came the next time. So I like doing that, all four of us, because we could just all get our little pot of tea and a little dessert and just talk, and that's always fun to hang out. I love the occasional nights when I come over and watch movies, and Lillian gets so hyper that she reads the word loser as losser.
She was so annoying.
She was extra annoying that day. A couple weeks ago, I took them to play pickleball, which Lulu had absolutely no interest in participating in at all, but Lillian, like me, is very uncoordinated, so it was just hilarious trying to see her hit the ball. But yeah, I like taking them to do little fun activities. I used to, when they were younger, take them to the movies, but they just never really seemed that into it. So
they'd probably be into it now. They're a little older.
Yeah.
Because they really like going to the movies now.
Yeah. I also feel like they just think they're too cool for me sometimes. So that's that. But
well, they're just cool in general. They're at that age where you have to like knock them down a little bit because you're just not cool. Like,
yeah. I
just have to keep telling them they're not
I would
cool.
say my favorite thing, though, is going to the tea place, because that's something that my mom took me to do a couple times with Dee Dee, my cousin, when I was little. So I like doing it with them. It reminds me of being their age and mom taking us to that place in Haddonfield, but it being like a slightly better selection and having more fun desserts. So
that place is good. They have such good green milk tea. It's
oh
so
my God.
good.
Yeah. The rose tea I got last time was awesome. Their desserts are so good. I get some like coconut panna cotta with strawberry ice cream.
Oh,
it's
yeah, that is
delicious. All right. Last question. Nicole, how have you changed as a mother from Maria to the current kids?
A lot, and then not a lot really. I definitely like cook better.
No
Maria,
ham steak and mac and
unfortunately,
cheese?
yeah, Maria unfortunately was, I was a single mom when I had her, and I wasn't really making a ton of money, so we ate a lot of just, like she said, we had our favorites like pastine, mac and cheese, ham steak. I didn't know how to really cook anything.
Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, Taco Bell.
No, I don't even think Chick-fil-A was around, really.
There was the one in Defford, so it wasn't near us, but if we went to the Defford Mall, we would get it, and that was like the ultimate treat. And then we got that one in Audubon, so then we were having it all the time.
I don't think there was one at Defford Mall.
There was.
In the mall? Oh, yeah, there was. You're right. Yeah, that we used to get that, but there wasn't one around, so we didn't get it that much. But like, yeah, I mean, she just was kind of like, I would get done from work at 6:00 and then drive her to her after school program and pick her up, and we would stop at the grocery store or stop and get food or something, Boston Market, whatever. Like, it was just kind of really fast. So now I have more time that I could like cook better food and stuff like that. And I mean, that's kind of it. Like, what do you think? Like, we still do the same stuff. Like, we like watch movies and stuff, and I do their homework with them, just like regular stuff. I mean, Maria was pretty good about doing her homework by herself. She just was a good kid and like did what she was supposed to do.
I jokingly refer sometimes that I got you during your fun phase because you were in like your early 20s. So meaning that like you would be more willing to take me to concerts and be out late or like pick me up from somewhere at 2 a.m. And I know you would do that for them now, but I feel like
No, I wouldn't. I am not like, when they sit there and say, "Oh, can we go to the Taylor Swift tour?" I'm just like, I would rather give you $5,000 than go to the Taylor Swift
while
concert.
that would be my worst nightmare because I absolutely don't want to listen to her music, I would take them to that. Like I would be the one to take them to do things like that. Whereas when I was their age, you were young, you were my age.
Yeah, I mean,
so-
I took you, yeah, and I took you to places like that all the time because that was like, it's just weird how you change as you get older. Like when I was your age, I had no problem eating dinner at 9 o'clock at night. Like if a reservation was available at 9, I'd be like, "Oh, cool, like let's go." I don't want to, like, I want to be in bed at 9 o'clock at night now, and I want to eat no later than 5:30. Like there's certain things like, yes, I'm really not fun anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, you are.
But there's like stuff like that that's just different because I'm a way older person. Like I didn't have Lillian until Maria was 18 years old. So it's just I'm so much older now, and there's just like different things. I'm married now, so I have like help with that, and it's just there's just different things. But overall, we still do the same traditions. Like we have movie night and things like that, and we go down the shore. Just there's nothing like different in that respect.
From my perspective, you are pretty similar with them. We just also had a different situation, which I understand. You know, like they live in the same house their whole life. We moved a lot. Like, you know, I kind of kept to myself, and you respected that. Where like sometimes like they need a little more guidance in that area, especially because there's two of them. So like I didn't have anybody to like fight with, for example. So like if they're fighting, you got to step in and stop it. And you got to be kind of more on their ass a little bit than I had to be. So there's just
yeah, but it's kind of the same though.
Yeah.
Like it's like we like, especially when Gabe has work at nights, like we will watch like a series of a show or something. We just had, the same with you. Like we had our things that we did all the time, and
it's basically, from my observation, the same thing with like little things adjusted just simply based on life circumstances. So I would say it's funny that your motherhood style hadn't really changed in a 12-year or 20-year difference. So
well, it worked out well with you, so I figure I'm
Thank
not going
you.
to change things up too much.
No. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you Thursday for our next episode.
Thank you for listening to Mother Knows Death. As a reminder, my training is as a pathologist assistant. I have a master's level education and specialize in anatomy and pathology education. I am not a doctor, and I have not diagnosed or treated anyone, dead or alive, without the assistance of a licensed medical doctor. This show, my website, and social media accounts are designed to educate and inform people based on my experience working in pathology so they can make healthier decisions regarding their life and well-being. Always remember that science is changing every day, and the opinions expressed in this episode are based on my knowledge of those subjects at the time of publication. If you are having a medical problem, have a medical question, or are having a medical emergency, please contact your physician or visit an urgent care center, emergency room, or hospital. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother Knows Death on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks.